What do you make of Louise Casey's findings?
Well, I pay tribute to her. She's left no stone unturned. This is an incredibly broad report, and she has found that the Met can't police itself, that it's failing women, that it's moved away from neighbourhood policing, and that still, after many years, it is yet to rid itself of institutional racism and sexism and homophobia. It's a wake-up call, I think, to us all. You've had the Commissioner on talking about the action that he'll be taking. What Dame Louise has said is, let's give them 2 years to do the things they need to do to fundamentally change the entire leadership and structure of the Met. And if they haven't done it by that point, then more intervention will be required. But I think it's a really comprehensive report, and government now needs to look to its role as well. Let's have those national standards in terms of vetting, misconduct, training that Labour has been calling for many months, and that many reports have been calling for many years. Let's have those national standards. Let's bring back neighbourhood policing, which is the heart of policing by consent in our communities. And let's really tackle violence against women and girls, but not just as a slogan, put the resources in to make it happen.
But isn't Sir Mark Rowley cherry-picking? You know, he's saying it's not institutional, even though you said Louise Casey has gone to a great deal of trouble to point out that, in her opinion, it is exactly the same finding that was found 25 years ago when you guys were in power, when it was the Macpherson report.
Yes, and I think what she has said is that institutional racism is still there. She has spent the last year
but he doesn't agree. Smart really doesn't agree.
More than I have, more than you have, and she's found that if you're a black officer, for example, in the Met, you're 81% more likely
so
to be
he's wrong not to accept
disciplined.
that finding.
I accept the findings of the report.
No, I'm talking about
accepts the findings of the report. He
cherry-picks it.
Has said he will accept the findings of the report.
No, he didn't. He said
in full.
No, he didn't. He absolutely didn't say that. He didn't say that. He said he wouldn't accept them in full. He said he would accept the findings of the report. I said in full, and he said no.
Well, look, we can't fiddle about with the language of what he said. He needs to fundamentally change the cultures and the structures within the Met. There are a raft of recommendations that go to the very heart of what policing is about. And I think fundamentally what Louise is saying is that policing attracts the best of humanity, but it will also attract predators and people who want to do harm. And in the same way that we have changed systems in education or in medicine, we need to do the same in policing. We need to make sure there aren't predatory people allowed to exist in the Met and to continue to operate and be metropolitan officers. But she's also said we have to bring back neighbourhood policing. She said we have to look at our protection teams that are there to solve rape and sexual abuse. And she has officers in her report saying rape is effectively decriminalised. This goes way beyond.
Let me bring you back to my question. Should he accept the full findings of the report?
Yeah, absolutely, he should accept the findings of the report. And my understanding is that he has.
Well, he hasn't, because I had him on the programme this morning
well,
and he didn't
say that.
That's fine. I'm afraid I have to take my word for it or watch it back on YouTube. He does not accept the full findings of the report, should he?
He does need to accept the findings of the report. Of course, she has spent a year looking at all of these issues. We also think that the government need to accept the findings and to intervene where they need to change the law at a national level, because Louise Casey is really clear. She says, and she uses the language, austerity has disfigured the Met. And she also says that the Met has walked away from neighbourhood policing in part because of all the cuts that we've seen. So the government needs to play its role as well. National standards on vetting, bringing back neighbourhood policing and tackling violence against women and girls, which are the three things that the Labour Party would prioritise in government.
Does Sir Mark Rowley have the full support of the Labour Party?
Yes, he has only recently been put in post. Louise Casey supports him completely.
He was an assistant commissioner for years.
Well, and then he left and then has come back in this
a lot of these
role.
Problems were during his tenure previously.
Let's do what Louise Casey suggests. Let's give them time to bring in support, to change those structures. But this cannot be, you're absolutely right, this cannot be a report that is allowed to fester on a shelf and isn't implemented. There are fundamental changes here that are called for. And Louise Casey says, if after 2 years changes haven't been made, then we need to look more seriously at structures within the Met. We need to look at systems that operate within education, within the health service, within other public sectors where teams can be brought in to fundamentally change what is happening. One of the problems with the system at the moment is that the inspectorate will come up with a report, but they have no power to make sure they're implemented. The IOPC will come up with a report. They have no power to make sure it's implemented. The mayor, who oversees the role of the Met, also has very few levers. We need to look at all these things in the round, because this isn't just about the Met as well, and that's really important to say. There are problems across the country.
It is about the Met,
so we
as
need
far
to
as
look
this
at it
report
as a
is
national
concerned.
issue.
More than half of Londoners do not trust the police,
Yeah.
and Sir Mark Rowley this morning could not tell me whether there were other rapists within his ranks.
I think it is blatantly clear that if you are a predator, we know, teaching, medicine, policing, you will try and find places where you can abuse vulnerable people.
And they've been
We know
successful
that
with
is
the Met.
clear, and we must change that mindset that says, as Louise Casey says a few times in the report, it's not a few bad apples. There is a system that enables predators to carry on being police officers, and we have to change that system. So we need those standards. It cannot be right that if you've been accused and you're being investigated for domestic abuse, for example, or sexual abuse, you're not automatically suspended. We need to just change that now. It cannot be the case that I could be a police officer in the Met and I'll be arrested in Essex, and the two database systems don't talk to each other, so my bosses in the Met don't know that I've just been arrested in Essex. These things are fairly simple to change, and we have to change those now, because there will be predators who try and get into policing, and policing also attracts the best in humanity, and those officers need to be able to get on and do their job.
They do. It's good to see you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.